Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a highly misunderstood technology that you might think you know, but actually probably don't. We hear the term everywhere, right? Usually it's wrapped up in science fiction promises or some massive marketing hype. But the actual science, the history, and the real-world impact of this tech, it's far more fascinating and honestly, sometimes a lot more alarming than the commercials let on. So we have to ask the ultimate question. Is virtual reality just a gaming fad, or is it the next major leap in human evolution? Today, we're giving VR a much-needed reality check. We're going to uncover its true roots and dive into its profound, sometimes concerning, real-world consequences. I promise you, by the end of this explainer, you're going to see those headsets in a completely different light. Section 1. What is virtual reality? Let's start by defining exactly what we mean when we talk about digital realities, because the terminology gets mixed up all the time. Virtual reality, or VR, is a simulated experience using 3D head-mounted displays and pose tracking to give you a truly immersive feel. The absolute key here is total sensory immersion. It is actively trying to entirely replace your physical environment with a digital one, and that fundamentally separates it from augmented reality or mixed reality, which just layer digital objects over the real world using clear lenses or cameras. In VR, you're blind to the real world. Your brain is literally being hijacked by the virtual one. Section 2. The surprisingly long history. Most of us associate VR with recent headsets from massive tech companies, but the quest for human immersion spans decades. It goes way back to the 1960s. In 1962, we got the Sensorama, which was basically a mechanical viewing cabinet. Then, in 1968, Ivan Sutherland created a notorious headset called the Sword of Damocles, and it was called that because the hardware was so incredibly heavy, it literally had to be suspended from the ceiling right above the user's head. From there, we evolved to NASA's View headset in 1985, which eventually paved the way for that 2010 Oculus prototype that really kickstarted the modern era. And what's wild is just how early the vision for all of this was locked in. Even back in 1960, pioneers like Morton Halick, the guy who invented that Sensorama cabinet, envisioned a complete sensation of reality. He was talking about 100% peripheral vision, binaural sound, and even sense and air breezes. He literally wanted to hack all of our senses. This ambition laid the absolute groundwork for figures like Jaron Lanier, who popularized the term virtual reality in the late 1980s at his company VPL Research. The dream has basically always been the same. It's just the hardware that had to catch up. Section 3. The tech behind the illusion. So, how does the technology actually pull off this modern illusion? Well, to create true immersion, engineers have to battle against the incredible natural capabilities of the human brain and eye. Just with natural eye movements, humans have this massive overlapping field of view. We're talking roughly 300 degrees horizontally by 175 degrees vertically. That is a staggering amount of visual information to process. So modern headsets have to use these highly specialized lenses, like Fresnel or pancake lenses, and ultra-fast, high-res screens positioned mere inches from your eyeballs, just to try and fill that massive field of view and convince your brain that the digital world is real. But tricking the eyes is only half the battle, right? The headset also has to know exactly where your head is moving in physical space. Early modern VR tackled this with outside-in tracking. This meant installing these clunky external wall sensors, like infrared base stations, all around your room just to watch you move. But thankfully, we've shifted to inside-out tracking. This is where sleek, built-in cameras on the headset itself scan your environment and map your room in real time. It's a real game changer, because you can walk around freely without wiring your living room like a laser security grid. Section 4. Beyond gaming and entertainment. Okay, so while gaming gets all the spotlight, VR is actively revolutionizing some incredibly high-stakes, high-risk fields. Take medicine, for example. Programs like LapSim provide a safe, repeatable training environment for surgeons to practice really complex procedures, which actually improves their task completion times and scores. In psychology, virtual reality exposure therapy, or VRET, is treating complex conditions like post-traumatic stress disorder and agoraphobia. It safely guides patients through simulated environments that trigger their anxieties so they can learn to cope in a totally controlled, safe setting. The impact on safety training is honestly staggering. Consider this: around 20% of all rotorcraft accidents happen during training flights. That is a massive risk just to learn how to fly the thing. Because of this, major aviation authorities, including the European Aviation Safety Agency and the FAA in the US, have officially approved VR flight simulators for helicopter pilots. It lets pilots practice these highly dangerous maneuvers virtually without risking a multi-million-dollar aircraft or, their own lives.
Section 5, Health, Privacy, and Risks.
Now, while those benefits are immense, we have to soberly look at the biological and societal consequences of strapping screens to our faces. A major hurdle right now is cybersickness. This happens when there's a sensory disconnect. Basically, your eyes are telling your brain you're moving through a digital world, but your inner ear, your body's balancing system, knows you are standing completely still in your living room. The result? Total nausea and disorientation. And here's a wild, surprising fact. Studies show this sickness affects women at significantly higher rates than men. We're talking 77% of women experiencing symptoms compared to just 33% of men.
There are also some really serious physical risks. 1 in 4,000, that's 0.025%. That is the fraction of people who could experience unexpected twitches, seizures, or blackouts while using a VR headset. And what makes that stat so alarming is that this can happen to users even if they have absolutely zero prior history of epilepsy or seizures.
Also, we've got to talk about the stark contrast between the whole metaverse, media hype, and actual human behavior. We constantly hear that we're all going to live our lives digitally. Well, according to a 2022 Piper Sandler report focusing on U.S. teens, the exact demographic you'd expect to be all over this, only 5% actually use a VR headset on a daily basis. And half of the teens surveyed either had zero interest in the metaverse or were just totally unsure about the whole shebang. But perhaps the absolute biggest risk, and this affects literally anyone who puts on a headset, is the threat to our digital privacy. Because VR requires persistent tracking to even function, it basically acts as a highly effective surveillance tool. Advanced headsets aren't just tracking your clicks, they're capturing intimate biometric data. They track your exact physical movements, your voice patterns, your physiological responses. Even more chilling, the eye tracking sensors that are becoming totally standard can indirectly reveal deeply personal information. Based purely on where your eyes dart in a virtual space, companies can infer things like your ethnicity, health conditions, personality traits, and even your subconscious fears. All of this brings us to a question we really need to ask ourselves. As virtual spaces become vastly more advanced, more useful for training, and almost indistinguishable from reality, are we actually willing to trade our innermost biological and psychological data just to exist within them? Is the cost of ultimate immersion our ultimate privacy? It is a reality check we simply can't afford to ignore as this technology continues to evolve. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will leave you to ponder that thought until next time.